Yeah, my name is Derick Chibilu. Today I want to talk about a story my story that I have called or entitled My Story Coming Full Circle. This story starts in 1992. First of all, there are people that I think specifically two people that I'm going to mention in this video. I have not consulted them to ask them whether I should mention them, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind. And so I just wanted to put out that disclaimer that I'll mention some names, two specific names. One is Pastor Kamlile Piri of Isaka Lab Center in Lusaka, Zambia. The other one is Bishop M.B Malenga of Living Waters in Lusaka.
It's time for you to use the access that you were given. Hallelujah. You know, Mama and I were so humbled and amazed when someone sent us an email. He's in America, Zambia, together with his wife. And he gives a testimony of how God helped us to minister to him concerning his relocation, his life. A prophetic word came over him through my ministry. And that was in 1992. And he testified in 2021. That's God. Hallelujah. Are you here, beloved of God? Access.
And so I just wanted to put that out before I start, that I'm going to mention these two names. I have not consulted them, that I'm mentioning them, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind. So the story that I'm going to talk about today starts in the Pastor Kamlile's living room. That sounds interesting, but that's true. That's where it starts from. And it starts somewhere around 1992, I think. I'm not too sure exactly, but I'm sure it's 1992, somewhere around there. Pastor Kamlile used to be my youth pastor at one time, and then we lived pretty much in the same neighborhood, except he lived in the other section of the neighborhood. He lived in River Stage 2, I lived in River Stage 1 with my brother. But his daughter, Amy, used to attend a school that was on my street. So most of the times he would walk by my house, our house, pick me up, then we would walk together. We'd go and pick up Amy, then we would walk back to his house and sit and just talk about sports, politics, church. There are some times where I would be going to pray for somebody and they would like, brother, can you come? And once in a while I would call it in, but mostly we would just sit in the living room and talk. I spent so much time in the living room that at one time one man asked me if Pastor Kamlile was around. I told him I wasn't, I didn't know. He said, well, I thought he was your dad. And that was kind of funny. But anyway, this story starts in 1992 in Pastor Kamlile's living room. Like I explained that one of these times when he was going to pick up his daughter Amy, he stopped by my house and he called me and said, Brother Derick, can you come over tomorrow? There's this tape. Bishop M.B Malenga went to the United States in a town in South Texas. He went to this church. He talked so much about this church, so he brought a cassette tape. By that time we had video cassette tape or VHS. We didn't have CDs, or DVDs. He bought this tape that he gave me that I want you to come and watch with me. I said, wow, that's tomorrow or the following day was Saturday. So come Saturday, I walk over to his house. I found, I think there were 2 or 3 other people. Brother Friday was one of them. And there was, I think, 2 other people that he came with. So he put in the VHS, we started watching. There was this white man preaching. It was one of these mega churches. It was, when you used to going to a church in Zambia in a classroom, and then you see this mega church that is well furnished, it was big, and this white man was, I wasn't even paying much attention to what he was preaching. I was so fascinated about just the church itself. So we watched the tape. I never heard of this town in Texas. The only town I knew of in Texas was Dallas, because of the movie Dallas. So after, at the end of the VHS, when he finished, we started talking, and then they started talking about people that had gone to the US, some through Victory Ministries and others that had just gone on their own. And so they mentioned names, some I knew, others I didn't know, like this brother Julius that came to our church. He worked for Bank of Zambia. They said he had also gone to the US. And so they talked about, then Pastor Kamile turned over to me and said, Brother Derick, you should be next. Whether he was joking or he was serious, I don't know. I've never asked him. But at that time, the dream was born. I started thinking about the idea of going overseas after that time. Now, I'm trying to put events in the chronological order as much as I can, but I'll be going back and forth if I miss something. At this time, I was working for Central Statistics Office as a field enumerator. Enumerators are those people that come when they census, they knock on the door, they ask you questions, and then they leave a sticker. But I was in the agricultural statistics, so we went in Lusaka rural because I was based at Lusaka province. What we did is we'd go out in Chongwe, Lufunsa, Chinyunyu, Chiawa. We traveled pretty much around Lusaka province. We'd go and camp there, maybe at a classroom, at a primary school. The headmaster will give you his office, at a clinic, just anywhere. If there's a house, they will give you a house. Just camp there for 1, 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes we'd go for a month. It's a big project. We pretty much went like 3 times a year when they were just starting to prepare their fields, then when they were planting, and then when we would go back after the harvest to go and see, so we needed to have that statistics. This is the job I was doing. It was a very hard job. Sometimes I had to ride like, wow, almost 50 to 70 to 100 miles a day. And this area that I started with, it was a very big area. I would have to ride, wake up 6 in the morning, you'd go, you're coming back 6 p.m. in the afternoon. And so this is what my job entailed. But during this time, after high school, I never went to college. I went straight to start working for the government. But during this time, I took some few courses, a certificate at Unza. They were offering some courses at Ridgeway, so I took a certificate in personnel management. And then I also went and did a diploma in personnel management through the Institute of Commercial Management in the UK through City College. And after this, I applied to be transferred to administration and Central Statistics Office administration, the one that is, well, in Zambia we would say opposite UTH, so Americans would say across from UTH on Nationalist Road. I never heard from them for about a year or two. And then in 1995, I got a message that they wanted me at the head office. So I went and they asked me that you had applied to be transferred to the head office. I said, yes. Are you still interested? I said, of course, because I knew that would mean now wearing a tie all the time, which is like a tradition in Zambia. You have to be in a tie. So I was transferred to head office in administration as one of the junior admin officers. I think there were like 3 of us that were transferred there. The other 2 people were in head office. They just transferred them from the other departments into the administration. So I started working at administration. In 1996, Restoration Church, which was the church that I attended, we used to meet at Ridgeway campus in the main hall. Was, I think, commemorating one of the anniversary. I can't remember whether it was 12 or 13, but one of the anniversary, 12th or 13th, I can't remember exactly, in 1996. I remember it was a Thursday night. Bishop M.B. Malenga was the guest speaker that night. He had come to our church to preach several times because him and our Pastor Chibilu were friends. He had come to preach. By then I was the chief usher at Restoration Ministries, but I never had like a personal encounter interaction with him, with Bishop Malenga. Never. In fact, in my entire stay at Restoration, I only had 2 like personal encounters or interactions with him. And one of them was this one. The other one, I can't remember whether it was before or after. There was a lady, South African lady, Svongile Stole. She was getting married to an American, and there was this wedding ceremony being conducted at Pastor Cyril's at house in Chilenge in the night. So we were there, and Bishop Malenga and his wife were there. And when it ended, it was after midnight. I needed to get home, but then I was staying with my sister behind Kablonga Boys in the teacher's compound, just along Twin Palm Road. So I asked for a ride, and I told him, you just drop Kablonga, you drop me. So I said, you just drop me at the lights at Kablonga supermarket. So as we were coming, we reached there, he says, brother, exactly where are you going? You know, Pastor Malenga, so sometimes he likes some humor. Brother, exactly where are you going? We had actually almost there. I said, I'm actually going at the end of Twin Palm Road. He said, no, brother, sometimes it's not good to overwake angels. So he will drop you closer to your house. So he turned around and they drove me through Twin Palm Road, and they dropped me closer to the house. That was the second encounter I had with him. I don't know whether it was before the 1996 one or after. I have I can't remember the events, how they. But now, back to 1996. He was preaching that night as a chief usher. Personally, I'm not a person that is quick to go for altar calls and things. As chief usher, I was quick to go and catch people, but I was never in a hurry to go and be prayed for. But this time, there was something different. When he made the altar call, I was there. I was actually the second person. The first person was Brother Mditanawa, and I was right next to him. So he came down the platform, now the stage. He started praying for Brother Mditanawa. I could listen in because I was next to him. I hear him telling him to start putting his document together because his employers were going to send me abroad. I was like, wow, I wish that was me, Lord. What else do you have? Can he end there and finish that part on me? and I was, these are things that will go through your mind. You are standing next to a friend, you hear him being prayed for, and they are telling him, oh, you put your documents together, you'll be going abroad. I was like, wow. Please, Bishop Malenga, can you please cut that part and share the other part with me? So, well, true, he came over to me and he started praying for me. And I remember what he said specifically. He said, the Lord would want you to know that you will be going abroad. By then, I fell under the power. And he came over and he leaned over me and he said, but he's saying, when you do not forget the church. That was my only second encounter with Bishop Malenga, or interaction with Bishop Malenga, like on a one-to-one. That was 1996. I stood up, continued my ushering. I never told anybody after that, because Mrs. P liked to preach, say when you're pregnant, you keep quiet, you don't talk too much. So I kept quiet. I continued going to church faithfully, serving as an usher. As I was working at the head office, things were turning out to be very good. I was getting these favors. I was being recommended as a very good employee. I remember one man, he came from the province. He came over to our office and asked, who is Derick? I said, it's me. So he said, okay, I've been sent here by Mr. Muyavi. Mr. Muyavi was our chief administrative officer. He says, as he was sitting next to me, he said, oh, that is very good report. I said, what? The report by the boss. I said, what boss? He said, Mr. Muyavi. He told me that when you go to administration, don't talk to anybody else. Just go to Derick. He's the only one that can do what you want to be done for you. These other people are useless. I said, wow, thank you. And it's true. This Mr. Muyavi liked me so much that he would send me to provinces when I was there. They were administrative officers that were supposed to go. He would tell them, no, let Derick go. I would be sent. At one time, I was being considered for the other position. One of the positions I remember was I was being considered for the transport officer for Central Statistics Office, meaning being in charge of transport for the entire Central Statistics Office. Things were just turning out good. The personnel had two immediate supervisors, the superiors, the personnel officer and the administrative officer. But I was closer to the personnel officer because of my courses, the certificates and diploma that I had in personnel management. I thought I would, so I leaned more towards the personnel. And of course, he helped me with a lot of personnel work, teaching me what to do when you're recruiting people, and just we were being very good friends. But one of these times, you know how in Zambia that people would, you know, these superiors, sometimes they would create these workshops. And they set up a workshop, and instead on that list, they would put all the girls from the offices, and they would leave you, the guys, and they would just go and take these girls. And that happened, and they went to Livingstone for 2 weeks. But during this time, there is a department at CSO, as we call it, Central Statistical Office. When I say CSO, I'm referring to Central Statistical Office. There was a department called CPI, it's Consumer Price Index. This department are the ones that go around the country to collect prices for products in the markets and the stores. And then when they come, they use those prices to calculate inflation. And so they have to go every month, and they have to go on a specific date. Then they needed to go. Now, in the government, the process when you have to go is the subject matter expert or the head of that department creates a request for funding, and then it's sent to administration. It's put on, there's a file for that department and for that project or whatever it is. So they'll put that letter on the registry will put that letter on that file, and then they send it to one of the administrators that are authorized signatories. There are people that are authorized, not everyone. And then once they sign, then it's sent to the director's office. The director approves. Then it's sent to the accountant. The accountant approves payment. Then they gives it to one of those accounts clerks to process the payment. And so when it came to admin, the personnel officer, the admin officer, the senior admin officer, they were all gone in Livingstone. There was no one to sign. So they asked me to sign. I told them, no, I'm not an authorized signatory. So they went back to the director. They said, well, there's no one to sign. He says, who is there? He says, well, there are auxiliaries, and then there's also Derick. The director says, go and tell him to sign. So they came back. They said, the director says you should sign. Well, the word came from the director. He authorizes. I'm an authorized signatory, for at least for today. So I went ahead and signed, and they processed the payment. That was one thing that happened. The other thing that happened is that at this time, the director wanted UNZA, there were some UNZA graduates, about 10 of them that were supposed to be recruited. And the chief administrative officer is one guy that was put there. He wasn't really an administrator. He didn't know what to do. They just put him there. He was like just a figurehead, but he wasn't really involved in admin work. He wasn't a career administrator, so he never knew what was going on. So the director sent these guys to him, and he didn't know what to do. So he knew he was going to be exposed. So he called the officer. He said, look, there are these people. I don't know why. He was close to one of the officers. He said, there's these people. I don't know what to do with them. And the director wants them. So the officer suggested, I said, oh, call Derick. Send them to Derick. He said, really? He said, yeah, send them to Derick. He knows what to do. He works with the personnel officer. So he called me to his office. I found two of them. He said, Derick, get this. He was a very funny man. Get these people. Take them to the office. Help them what they want to do. So I took the guys. Immediately I entered the office. Before I even sat down, the phone rang. Derick, come and get another one. So I left these two guys in the office. I went back. I took the other guy that came on. So at the end of the day, there was like 10 of them. I processed their paperwork for applications, their documents. I created files for them in the registry, set up the interviews for them. Well, I remember one of the guys that was in this group was the Hamsankwa, I can't remember, Hamsankwa Hamunda or Hamsankwa Hamangawa. He was the notorious Unzasu president or something like that. This is one of the guys that I recruited. So I set up the interview. When the people that went to Livingstone came back after 2 weeks, the personnel officer, he found I had set up the interview. So he went to report to the chief administrative officer to tell him that they are back from the workshop. So he went, somehow the chief administrative officer, I don't know whether he was joking or serious, he told him that I found a very good replacement for you. So he says, oh, he told him that Derick, and he was bragging about how I saved his job. He said, that boy, what he did for me. Oh my God, he saved my job. He saved my life from the director. I didn't know what to do, but he did everything. So The personnel officer there, he came, he stopped by my office and called me, he said, come. Then he started telling me, hear what that man was telling me. I said, who? He says, the chief administrative officer. He was telling me that he has found a very good replacement for me. I said, wow, who? He said, you. So, I mean, what could you say? I was just laughing because I was used to, we were very close, so I just laughed. I didn't know it affected him so much. A few weeks later, he wrote me a letter, the same personnel officer. He said he was transferring me back to the province. Remember where you would go in the field in Lusaka rural camp, we were riding bicycles every day. He said he was transferring me there to go and, but I mean, I thought, look, I'm not supposed to be going backwards. I'm supposed to be going forward. That's how you make progress. You don't make progress by going backwards. You make progress by going forward. I'm not going back to the province. I refused. I went to the provincial risk officer and told him that, look, I've been transferred here, but I'm not willing to come. I don't want to come here. He said, well, exhaust your options. Once, if you're successful, well and good. If you're not, when you're ready to come, you come. It was at least good enough understanding. So I went back to the head office. I was going there in the morning. I would be going just, since I was no longer an administration, I would just be going in friends' offices. And it was one of these times when I was walking around that I met this same personnel officer. He was like with a clipboard and he was writing. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing writing in the corridor? He said, oh yeah, there's this program by the government. It's called Voluntary Separation Package. Remember when the MMD government came into power, they wanted to reduce the size of the government. So they came up with a program they called Voluntary Separation Package. In other words, they offered a package to people that were willing to volunteer to retire early. And I said, wow, really? I said, Waka, put my name there. He's like, really? Are you sure? I was shocked. I said, yeah, put my name there. So he put my name. And I called my friend, one of my friends, my best friend, Dan. We were hired the same day, same job, same position. And we retired at the same time. He just, unfortunately, he just passed last September, the first week of September. We buried him, and we buried on September 20th. He was he was my best friend. He got married, his wife, my wife, and I got married. He was the best man on my wedding, and yeah. But anyway, we lost him. We lost him last September. So I called him and said, my friend, there's this thing going on. He was like, oh, yeah, just put my name. Because him and Neo had been talking about going to school overseas because he had cousins that were in school in the US. And so he would tell me about his cousins and says, look, one day we'll find our way of going there. And then, now, during this time, when Bishop Malenga prophesied over me that I would be going abroad, I became ambitious and started applying. I actually applied to the Institute of Commercial, not Institute, the Kensington Business College in London, in the UK. I applied. They accepted me and sent me an acceptance letter, but they wanted £4,000. Now, if you understand my family, where I came from, I don't come from a lot of money or wealth. In fact, all my brothers and my sisters, including my parents, our money, our savings put together wouldn't amount to £4,000 at that time. So there was just no way I was going to afford £4,000. Such that even when Bishop Malenga prophesied over me that I would be going abroad, I mean, there's such question of saying, okay, how will I go? Because he didn't say to school, he just said you would be going abroad, and I didn't know how. So, I mean, I thought I would start, that's the way I started trying other ways of applying to school and things like that. But, so when that letter, I just folded it and put it together with my document. It was just in the house. So when this opportunity came to retire early, I volunteered. Now, it's also, let me also explain that when I was at the province, the Deputy Provincial Statistical Officer, who is number 2 in the province, had retired in 1995. After working for the government, because in government you either retire after working for 25 years or reaching 50, at that time 50 years of age. Him had worked for 25 years, so he retired. After working for 25 years, he was paid $5 million as his retirement benefit. Me, I worked for Central Statistical Office from November 1991 to February or March 1998, which is like, well, that is like what, 6 years, 7 years? Wow, something like 6 years. So when 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the Public Service Management, that is the admin part, department of a section of the government. And they said my request for early retirement was accepted. And I was going to get 6.5 million kwacha as my retirement benefit after working for 6 years. So I took the money, put it in the bank, and a week later, I went and found a job at Zambia as a assistant butchery manager, trainee, assistant butchery manager at the Nkwazi branch, the one at Nkwazi and Freedom, where they call them excellent. Those are different from the ones you find in Soweto and in the compounds. Those were like high-end. Those are similar to the ones that were in ShopRites. They call them excellent. So those were high-end. So I went there at the Nkwazi branch to train as an assistant butchery manager. I was wearing a coat and an apron. I remember there were people laughing at me saying, you know, in Zambia, people think you should be, even kids from grade 7, they want to wear suits and ties and in the church. Which is, to me, which is a problem with a lot of these Pentecostal, in our Pentecostal churches, because there are these kids that they don't have a job, they're not doing anything, but there's too much pride. They want to be seen in a suit and a tie. I mean, it's good to be smart, but if you can afford that suit, you know. So I started working there, and there were these girls. I remember one girl specifically came there to confront me. She says, "Why? I just wanted to come and confirm if it's true what I've been hearing. People saying you work in the butchery. Is it true?" So I came to confess. I said, "Look, this is me." What she didn't know is that I had this money and I didn't have a job. So I needed to survive for upkeep. So I needed to put that money in the bank and then get a job that will give me money for upkeep, so I don't spend the money that I got as the benefits that I've got. Because I had this plan of going to school overseas. But I mean, I wouldn't just go telling anybody that I had plans of going to school. So I kept that to myself. I'll just brush people off. But this is a lesson to especially young people, that don't just go to church, pray all day, you're in prayer meetings. I'm not saying praying is good, but what I'm saying is you are at church, you are praying, you are doing in Bible study and looking for an office job when you're just a grade 7 or a grade 12 graduate. Find anything that can give you money. If you're doing garden work, yard work for somebody, they can pay you. Do it. Don't listen to what other people are saying. If you have a goal, try to raise money and find ways of raising money. If it means when you're not at church, talk to church members that have houses. Can I come and do your yard? Can I come and mow your lawn? Can I come and do your garden? Can I come and do weeding at your garden? Ask them. Let them pay you. They pay you 100 kwacha, 200. At the end of the month, you have a 500. You can save that money. Don't want to be seen in a tie all the time, even when you don't have income. You can't afford the tie, but the little money that you get, you want to go and buy a tie. It doesn't help you. So this is a lesson that I want to, especially the young ones, to take away from this. So that was 1998 when this was happening. But also, it's interesting how God works things. At this time, you see, I didn't know there was something happening in the spirit that at that time I didn't realize. God had set in something in motion. When I say it started from Pastor Malenga's living room and Bishop Malenga, God had set something in motion. And Bishop Malenga was part of this plan because he's the one that brought the cassette that made Pastor Malenga call me to go and watch, and he's the one that God used to give me that way that I'll be going. I don't know why. Bishop Malenga doesn't know this, but he was in God's plan for me, and he used him. At this time, things started happening. It's amazing how God works. And that's why I also want to tell people that it is important to be in the right mindset, to be amongst people that have the right mindset. And by the right mindset, I mean the mind of God, that is prayerful, sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Because sometimes we are not sensitive. Like I said, that we were watching that tape. Me, I was amazed by how beautiful the church was. But Pastor Kamlide, whether he was being sensitive to the Holy Spirit, he just said, Brother Derick should be next. From there, the dream was born. Also, Bishop Malenga. If I wasn't in church at that time, I would have missed that opportunity. But I was at the right time, in the right place, at the right time. So try to be aware of these things, your surroundings, the people that you hang out with. But there's something that started happening. I remember Pastor Piri, our pastor, was out that weekend. I think he had gone to Ndola. I don't know whether he went to Pastor Chikwanda's church, but he was out that Sunday. And Mrs. Piri, his wife, was preaching. I remember she preached specifically. She says, break camp. You've been on the mountain for too long. Extend the length of your cord. That message was meant for me. I could see her speaking to me directly. She doesn't know this, but she was speaking to me. I have that message written in the back of the Bible. I still have the Bible that I was using. I was writing the notes in the back of the Bible, right? And then the Bible. You know, there are those blank pages in the back. I wrote there. I still have that message in the back. So that was a Sunday. The following Sunday, Pastor Piri came back and he was preaching. If you've sat under Pastor Piri's preaching, you know that sometimes he likes to add humor to his preaching, just like Bishop Malenga. They like to add humor to their preaching. And I remember Pastor Piri saying, some of you, the reason you have that demon-possessed boss frustrating on your job is because God has been telling you to move, to leave that job, but you don't want, you're holding on to the job, you don't want to leave. Remember, this is a time when I had this personnel officer, supervisor, immediate supervisor of mine, trying to transfer me to the province. God is using that demon-possessed supervisor to try and get you out of it because he's been telling you to move, but you're not. This is 2 consecutive Sundays in a row, messages being directed at me. And then I remember I was listening to Pastor T.D. Jakes on TBM. And he came on and he was saying, when you are faced with your setback, take a step back and get ready for your comeback. I was like, wow. This following Saturday, I went to visit my cousin, my first cousin. On a Saturday, I entered the house. Her husband, who wasn't even a Christian, was like, wow, Derick, it's good you've come. Come. I have these cassette tapes. This guy is a very good speaker. I want you to go and listen to this. So he gave me 2 cassette tapes. When I went home, I plugged them in the cassette player. It turned out it was Dr. Miles Monroe and his message on purpose and vision. I was like, wow. See, God was just bringing these things together. At that time, he was showing me, he knew it was time. Because remember, it's from 1996 when Bishop Malenga prophesied to me. These things are happening 2 years later, that is 1998. And then there was just people that were coming into my life. From nowhere, I'll just meet these people that knew so much about, they've lived abroad, they went to school abroad, they knew so much about living abroad, they knew so much about the process of visa process, how to apply for a visa, and there were just so many people. I remember this guy, he was telling me, I lived in the US, this is the process, this is how it happens, this is it. I was amazed that I said, God, you are so awesome, you are so amazing. He knows when he has a plan for you, he's going to give you all you need. You just have to be in his timing. But the devil also is smart. I mean, he's not smart, crafty. Sometimes he'll try to entice you to try and make you lose your opportunities. When I was working at Zambi, I was training as a trainee manager at that Nkwazi branch. I worked there for like 2 or 3 months. I was transferred to Mateo Shoprite because the person that was at Mateo Shoprite, he came from the farm. Those people that have never gone to school, they don't know how to read. So he was having trouble with doing his finances and stock taking, writing, and so they sent me there to go and be his assistant, but I was handling the finances and the stock taking and stuff like that. So I was at Mateo ShopRite Zambia for less than a month. I was called back. I had a supervisor, a Boer guy. He was very racist guy. He called me. I was actually on my way to the bank to get my pay. My first pay was since I went there. It was less than a month. He called there, the manager told him, no, actually he's on his way. He's coming over there to pick the check. I was going to pick the check at the office. So when I came there, he's like, let's go. I was like, wow, I didn't even pick my check. He just says, let's go. So I started following him. I mean, that was on Cairo Road. We walked across to Nkwaz, to Freedom Way at Nkwaz. I was shocked. And then, so the employees there knew me, and they knew the manager had been fired. Me, I didn't know. I was just following him blindly. So it took me there, and then because they were expecting, each time they knew each time, when he comes there, somebody's bringing a new manager. When they saw the new manager was coming, it was me, they were like, all of them went in, and they were Derick. They were relieved. So it took me in there. I didn't know what was going. He says, my friend, you are the manager here. I was like, what? He didn't even tell me what happened. He says, you are the manager. The problem is the refrigerators there were breaking down. Things, the sausages, the meat, the cold room, or things were going bad such that the public health department at the city council were threatening to shut down the butchery. And so they fired the manager. So they brought me in there to clean up the place. I cleaned up the place, brought it back, because when you walk outside, it was even smelling outside. I cleaned up the place, brought it back even to better than it was. So the owners at that time of Zambia were Carl Erwin and the Grogan, Francis Grogan. There were only two there. They were so impressed with me that they started considering me. I didn't know. They started considering me for the position of general manager Copper Belt, to be in charge of the entire Copper Belt, Zambia Copper Belt. I didn't know. They didn't tell me. But one guy from there came and tipped me off. You know that they are considering you for a position of general manager. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, they are talking about it, but don't say I told you. I'm just tipping you off. I said, wow, good. That was one instance. But this supervisor that I had, the Boer guy, he didn't want me to go to Copper Belt. I don't know, for some reason he was jealous. He wanted his colored friend to go there. So what he did, he transferred me from Nkwaza and transferred me to Lusaka ShopRite. That's where I was stationed. But I was just stationed there. He asked me to go, and those cashiers there were stealing money. And the manager that I went to work with in Matelo was now at Lusaka ShopRite. They didn't know how they were losing money. So he sent me there to go and investigate. So I went up to the ShopRite where the cashiers put those rows. You know, where on their tills when they're punching, there's a row inside. That's like a master copy from their calculators. Normally they'll roll them up and put them in the box. So I took like a week or so. I went up there. I was looking at those rows. What those cashiers were doing, because I worked with at the butchers where we had those calculators. We became so good at the calculators adding up. When we made like sausages, we packed them. We had to total them up how much. So we used that using calculators. I knew how calculators work. How those calculators work is like when you add up the numbers, when you press total, it gives you the subtotal. And then when you continue adding in other numbers, when you press total, it gives you another subtotal. That doesn't include the first numbers. So you have add up subtotal, then you continue adding in numbers. When you press total, it gives you another. Then at the end of you're supposed to do grand total. That adds all the subtotals and adds up the grand totals. What these cashiers were doing is they would punch and hit subtotal, and then they'll continue again and then hit subtotal. Then at the end of the day, they'll just do subtotal. So what they will show to their supervisors is they'll roll up those slip, and then they'll show they'll circle the last subtotal, and they'll show their supervisors that this is how much I sold. And that's the cash they would give to their supervisors, and they would keep the rest. And the supervisors in ShopRite couldn't figure that out. Zambia was wondering why they were losing money. So when I went through, I had to go through the rows, all the and I found this trend. there was this trend what was going on. So I went back and back. So I figured out what was going on. I called my boss, Israel. I said, I think I figured out what the problem is. He's like, what? So I showed him how a calculator works. The guy, I showed him how the calculator works, and I said, this is what they've been doing. It was like, it was mad. He called the supervisor for cashiers at ShopRite. Said, it was at Monday. He says, come here. He was like, Derick, show him. So I explained to him, oh, they fired the cashiers. They fired and they hated me. They were fired, all the cashiers. So they put me and ShopRite to be standing behind the cashiers just to watch them when they are selling, to see, make sure they are entering Zambia products. But after that, he gave me this job where I was just going around the ShopRite, Zambia, do stock taking every week. I was just going around like every week. I would go from one shop to the other, like Matelo, Chilenge, Lusaka ShopRite, Amanda Hill. There's excellent ones. The one at Nkwazi, I would just go to those shops doing stock taking. And then when they opened the branch at Kablonga supermarket, because Carl Erwin, the founders of Zambia, the owners of Kablonga supermarket, the Bartons, were his in-laws. He married their daughter. So Zambia by then was renting offices behind Kablonga supermarket. That's why the Zambia head office was. So when Kablonga supermarket closed, they opened a high-end shop there that had diplomats and all these people coming to buy there. Now, the guy that they took there, like, I don't know where they were suspecting was stealing money, so they transferred me there to handle to the cashiers and the cash. I was at that store until I left. But my point is that all these things, the devil was trying to entice me. Had I gone to the copper belt, I would have missed an opportunity. That's one thing I wanted to mention. I would have missed an opportunity because I was going to have this good job, and then I wouldn't care about what I wanted to do. Being in Lusaka and having to, because I had to go and apply for a passport, I had to go to the embassy to get the visa. The other thing is that had that personnel manager not frustrated me by transferring me to the province, I wouldn't have volunteered to go on that voluntary separation or early retirement, because I was still going to have that job, so I wouldn't have seen any need for me to retire. So whilst the devil is crafting, trying to entice you to make you miss the opportunity, God creates these scenarios that may seem to be negative, but they're actually good for you, because something good comes out of that. Like the Bible says that joy comes in the morning. At that time, it seems like this personnel manager was cruel to me. He was trying to frustrate me. I was so upset with him. But God was using him to frustrate me so much to the point that I was willing to quit, which I did. At that time, God provided a way out, and there was this opportunity for me to get 6.5 million. Now, this is just halfway the story. I haven't remember, I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning that I've called this full circle, my story coming full circle. Now, I want you to pay attention until to the end to understand why I've called it this. So, 1998, I was working for Zambia. I worked for Zambia up to 2001 January. 2001 January, I was at this time, my brother in September had gone to the US, so I asked him to find me a school. He found me a school, I applied, I sent in my documents, they accepted me, they gave me the I-20. I-20 is if you're applying to go as a student, there's this form that after you've met all requirements that they send, is an immigration form. That's the one you used to go and apply for a student visa at the US Embassy. By then, the US Embassy was at Independence Avenue and Nationalist. I don't know. So I went there. By then, I was even late. School had opened. I went there. That time we used to go before 9/11. You would go there, they give you a form, you fill in the form, you give them, they take it inside, then they start calling you. You stayed outside. So there was this Indian man with his family. They went in. He came out crying. The old man was crying, weeping like a baby because they denied him the visa. And I was next. I was like, wow, I was so scared. But when I went there, I was only asked 3 questions. Where are you going? What are you going to do? For how long? Who is sponsoring you? come at 2 o'clock and get your visa. 3 questions. What are you going to do? For how long? Who is sponsoring you? That just shows you the faithfulness of God, that when He has commissioned a plan for you, He is going to provide what you need for that plan. This man was weeping. He came out of them. I'm sure he had more money than me. He came out weeping like a baby. And I was right next. I walked in there. I asked 3 questions. I'm told, come and get your visa at 2 o'clock. So at 2 o'clock, I went and got my visa. I got my visa. I remember I walked over to Ridgeway campus to Pastor Cyril Piri. They had the offices there, and Mrs. Piri. I went and I told Pastor, I just got the visa. On Saturday, I'll be leaving for the United States. So they prayed for me, and I left. So that is the first part of my story. January 20th, 2001, I got on the plane, headed for the United States. January 21, 2001, I landed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. It was a snowy day. As we were in the plane, I looked down, all I could see is white. There was snow all over. The first time in my life I was seeing snow. I landed, hence starts my story in the United States. Now the second part of this full circle is now set into motion, begins on January 21st, 2001. So I arrived in Philadelphia. I found my brother with his friends. They come to pick me up. The school I was going to is in Dover, Delaware. Delaware is a small state. It's the first state that was created in the United States. A little bit of history. The first state, it is not known to people, especially people outside the U.S., it's not known. But Delaware, even me, I learned about it after I applied to go to school. Delaware, actually their motto, even on their license plates on their cars, it says the first state. It was the first state that was created. It's in between Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, which is Pennsylvania. It's about 1 hour, 30 minutes drive from Washington, D.C., about 30 to 45 minutes from Philadelphia. They don't even have an airport. The airport, you have to go to Philadelphia, which is closer, or to Baltimore, which is about 1.5 hours, or to Dallas in Washington, D.C. But it's a very small state. So I went to Delaware Technical and Community College at Derick campus. I actually arrived late, a week late. I arrived on a Sunday. On a Monday, I went to report for school, to enroll and everything. By that time, I had $195 in my left in my pocket, because you know when you have money. My family knew I had money. These sisters come and lend us some money. We'll give you when you're ready to go. When I was ready to go, they didn't have the money, so I almost missed the flight. I almost missed that trip. But God is always faithful. And that's what I want you to take away from this, is that God is always faithful. No matter how much the devil tries to distract you, if you are being in the mindset of God, you're being sensitive to the Holy Spirit, you're sensitive to the leading and guidance, the guiding of the Holy Spirit, you're always going to come out on top. And so I arrived in the United States with $195. That is unheard of. Fortunately enough, most schools in the U.S. have what they call a payment plan. That is, if your tuition, you pay a certain percentage, maybe 30% down, and then you pay the rest in installments. So I convinced them. I said, I only have $195, so I paid that $195 as a down payment. And I told them, the good thing is, even if you don't pay those installments, they don't kick you out of school. They'll let you finish, but they'll put a hold on your account, meaning you can't get your results, and you can't enroll for further classes in the following semester if you have a hold, unless you clear that balance. And that's what they did. But fortunately enough, during I think it was around April, I found a job. Remember in Zambia, I was working in a butcher and people were laughing at me. I found a job as a dishwasher at a racetrack, NASCAR, the racetrack. I think if you've seen on TV, there are those cars that go very fast, like in a track, in a stadium, they just go around. Those cars go 150, 70 miles an hour sometimes. And there was this racetrack, there was a 1 mile oval track. And then they had hotels, they had horse racing, they had simcast, and then they had, on the other side, they had what they call slot machines. It's more like casino, but they called them slot machines. It was Dover Downs Gaming and Entertainment. I was working in the restaurant washing dishes. And then when I hired me, they told me, my friend, you'll be washing about 2,000 dishes a night. I was working from 5:30 p.m. to about 02. And then after 02, by the time I finish, it's like 03 by the time I'm getting home. Then you have to wash the dishes, then clean up the place. Then they had, there's this thing where they would put trash, there was in the kitchen, they would throw the food that is eating, it was heavy. And then you had to push this thing up the lamp into the dumpster. I remember this one night. I was by myself. Everybody was gone. I remained finishing up because we had to clean up we have these dishwashers, industrial dishwashers where you have a rack where you put the plates, you just push them in, you hit the button, it's running, it washes the dishes. When they come out there, they are dry. You just take them, put them on the racks, you just keep pushing stuff in. But then you also have to go take the trash and put them in this, whatever you call it. And then you have to go and push it up a dumpster. To go up the dumpster, you have those the ones that the truck you come and drop. It has like a ramp where you have to go up. And I was trying to push this thing up. It was like almost after 02. I was trying to push this thing up. It was so heavy I couldn't. I tried, I couldn't. And then if you leave that thing, when they come in the morning, you're fired. It was against the rules, but I was by myself. I tried to push it up. I couldn't. I tried, I couldn't. I sat down, I was almost crying. Tears were coming out my mouth, like I was suffering. I felt like, why am I suffering like this? And then I said, you know what? If I sit here and keep mourning, nothing is going to come out of this. So I stood up. I pushed this thing, I pushed it up. But then you have to tilt it into the dumpster and to offload those things. I did that thing and that thing fell in. Oh my God. Now I was struggling to pull it out. That day, that's the day I remember I sat down, cried. But again, I said, look, Derick, you're going to be here all night. You need to go to school in the morning at 8. So again, I went up, pushed this thing out. When I got home after 3, I was so tired, but I had to go to school at 8. I was going to school from 8 to about 12, and then I didn't have the computer. So what I did afterwards, I would sit in the computer lab to use the school computers and print the assignments so that I can hand them in tomorrow when I come to school. So I go home, then I'll have to come up early to school to go and print in the lab. But I mean, to give myself enough time to sleep, I would rather stay over, use the school computers, do homework. By the time I get home, I sleep a little bit before 5:30 to go. That's what I did, washing dishes. And then when we closed in the summer, because schools, they have 2 semesters. You close in May, then you are closed until August, unless you want to take summer. They offer summer schools, but you're not required. So as an international student, I was supposed to take full-time, a full load. That is 4 classes, which is 12 credits. In a regular semester. I was not required to be in school in the summer, but regular semester you can't take less than 12 credits. It means you're out of status. They can be deported for that. So when we closed in the summer, I went and found a second job. I was working from 7:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. So now I had 2 jobs. The one, my regular job, where I was working from 5:30 to 2 a.m. And then by the time I'm getting home, it's like 3 a.m., sleep a little bit, 6, I wake up, I go to the other job. I remember I would be there, I would be dozing. They had this in the bathrooms, they had these showers at this job. I would go and sit on the bench on the shower and I would doze a little bit, for like I'm going in the toilet, I would doze a little bit and I would come back, I would be so asleep. So I was doing 2 jobs just to raise money. I raised enough money to pay off the balance and to pay up the balance, and also to raise enough money for the coming semester. That's how I recovered. So this is my school journey. During this time, I graduated from that school with an associate degree, Associate of Science in Business Administration in May of 2004. So at this time, I decided to move to Malenga, where my brother was living. I found a job there. There was this lady, she used to be my sister. I know she was married to my cousin, my first cousin, but he's passed. She called me and she said, Derick, there's this girl. I went to Texas to visit these girls that I was singing with in the choir at Northmead. There's a couple, but they have a friend who is single. She's a Christian. I want to introduce you to this girl. Not these girls here, these Zambian girls here. These are useless. This one is a Christian girl. I knew her. I talked to her. She's a very, she's talking about Texas. That is about 3 hours flying 25 to 27 hours driving from where I was to where she was. And I'm like, how is this going? I mean, I was seeing girls around there that were like 30 minutes away. And I was like, But I decided to pick up the phone one day and called her. And we started talking. I remember I helped her. In the process, I helped her with one of her homework. She had a paper that she was supposed to write. I said, look, I'm very good at that. I took that writing course so she sent me the question because she was so busy working, she didn't have time to do this paper. So she sent me a paper. I did the paper for her and I still keep that paper as a souvenir. Every time I remind you, remember I did this paper for you? I still have it. So I did the paper for her. So we talked that was about May, that was about June, July 2005. I packed my things in the car and took a cross-country trip to Dallas, Texas. I had a friend there. I called him. I said, I'm coming over. So I moved to Dallas, Texas. Now, this lady lived in Houston, Texas, which is like 5 hours drive from Dallas, Texas, where I moved to. So I was in Dallas, Texas from June 2005. I worked briefly there. And then one weekend, I decided to go and see, because at this time we just talked on the phone. I decided to go and see her in person. So I drove that 5 hours from Dallas to Houston. And I arrived in Houston on a weekend. For the first time we met. And this is why I said my story full circle. This is where the story comes full circle. So when I went to see her in Houston, she decided to take me to Lakewood Church. That was our first date. The first date. She didn't know about me, anything about, she just decided, let's go to Lakewood. So we went to Lakewood as our very first date, to Lakewood Church. Now, this is what you need to understand, that we didn't go to the current Lakewood Church. We went to the old Lakewood Church, the same one that Bishop Malenga went to, where he got that video cassette tape. That's the Lakewood Church we went to. And immediately after we attended that service, the following, it wasn't long after that, Lakewood moved from that location to their current location, the one that is in southwest Houston, the former Houston Rockets arena. It was a basketball arena. They moved, they sold that place. And that's why I called this story, my story, coming full circle, because where I started from, where Bishop Malenga went and bought the video cassette tape that he came and gave to Pastor Kamlide. Pastor Kamlide invited me to come and watch this tape with him. And then from Pastor Kamlide's living room, the story my dream was born. I moved to the United States, not knowing that God had a wife for me in Houston, Texas. And this wife, our first date, will be at the same church that Bishop Malenga went to. I never realized this until recently, maybe like 2-3 years ago, when I thought about it. That's when it dawned in me. And they were like, wait a minute. There was something going on here that in the spirit that I didn't know. But let me just mention that this is Zambian. My wife, my current wife, is a Zambian. It's not American, because people like to ask that. She's actually a Zambian. She's Lozi. Well, connection with BM Malenga. Well, maybe the Lozi connection. So There was that anointing from Bishop Malenga was so much that it had to be a loss. So, this is my current wife, Alice Chibilu. She is my wife. Right now, we've been married. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary last December, New Year's Eve. But what I want you to take away from this is that hopefully it will encourage you in your story. Understand that everything is possible. Like I explained that I don't come from a lot of money. In fact, I was born in Sanfia district. I never lived in the city until after I finished high school and I started working in Osaka. I lived in places, I was born in Sanfia, I lived in places like Mwense, Mansa, Senanga in Western Province, in Polokoso in Northern Province. I remember I went to Namalangu Primary School. We had to walk across the airstrip to go to school. I walked to school barefoot my entire primary school up to about grade 6. The only reason I got shoes is because my dad, there was 11 of us. I come from a family of 11, 5 boys, 6 girls. I'm the youngest of the boys. So whenever dad had to buy, he prioritized the people that were going to secondary school for shoes and stuff supplies. For me, because I could go to school without shoes, so he let me go to school. But if you've lived in Western Province and especially Senanga, you know that it's sandy there and it's hot. I remember what you had to do is you stand in the shade in the tree a little bit, then you run the next tree because it was hot. Stand there for a minute or two for your feet to cool down and then run. I did that for my entire primary school. So don't think that these things only happen to people that have money. It can happen to anyone, because I'm mentioning this so that you can identify with me that you don't need to have a lot of money. When you have God on your side, all things are possible. Number 2, I could have looked at myself as being the youngest and thought, wow, none of my brothers has been overseas or has achieved anything. How am I going to do this? But it's true. If you believe that, it's going to be like that. But like David, he was the youngest of them all. When he was anointed king. It turns out that I was the first one of all the 11. I was the first one, despite being, I'm 10th, and that 11, I'm 10th. I'm the youngest of the 5 boys, but I'm 10th of the 11. I was the first person in the family to get a bachelor's degree. And then I am the only person in the family to have a master's degree. I just did my MBA. So no other person in the family. So despite being the youngest, despite being at the very tail end of the line, I was still able to achieve things that no one else ahead of me was able to achieve. If you are in the plan of God, if you have the mindset of God, if you hang around people that have the mindset of God, all things are possible. Do not underestimate the power of God. I said that I was born in Sanfia district. I went to school, Namalangu Primary School, barefoot. By the way, I was the best soccer player at Namalangu Primary School when I was there. I went to school barefoot. But now, I live in the 4th largest city in the United States. Houston, Texas is the 4th largest city in the United States after Chicago is the 3rd largest, then New York and Los Angeles. That's where I live. There are times when I'm walking in downtown Houston and it dawns on me that this is the kid that walked to school barefoot, that is walking in downtown Houston, the 4th largest city, one of the largest cities in the world, walking in downtown Houston. Joy just fills my heart, and just how awesome God is, the faithfulness of God. When he says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, he means it. But you have to trust him. You have to believe him. So I want to encourage you today that your plan may not be to go overseas. Maybe you want to start a business. You want to go to school in Zambia. You don't have finances. Like I said, I had to work in Zambia. I had to wash dishes to achieve my school. I was washing dishes to achieve the goal that I had. Because God is not going, He gave me this dream of going overseas, but He was not going to hand me cash. He was going to provide opportunities, but He was not going to hand me cash. So I had to use the talent that God has given me, that's a physical attribute, to achieve my goals, and that is by washing dishes. Well, it has also worked out well because I'm a good dishwasher. My wife knows that. I like washing dishes even here at home, so that is a plus. But despite washing dishes when I was in college, after I graduated, I've gone on to work for some of the biggest corporations in the world. I worked for HP Computers here in Houston at their campus, their manufacturing plant here in Houston. I worked there. I was a line lead, meaning I was a line supervisor, production line supervisor. I was supervising about 17 people where they make those savers. I also went on to work for Halliburton Energy Services. I don't know, you have to look it up. Dick Cheney, the former vice president, who at one time was CEO of that company. It's an energy services, meaning it's a support company to the oil industry, but it's a big company. I went on to work for such companies. I've worked for companies like Sam's Club. Sam's Club is, if you've heard of Walmart, a grocery store, Sam's Club is a warehouse part of Walmart. So I've gone on from working in the butchery to washing dishes. I've gone on to work in corporate America as well. And I have an Associate of Science degree in Business Administration. I have a Bachelor of Business Administration in Computer Information Systems. I also have a Master's of Business Administration. So with God, you can achieve anything that you want. You just have to believe. Like I said, you need to have the mindset of God. You have to be around people that have the mindset of God. Because sometimes we are not sensitive to the Holy Spirit, and the people around us, if they are sensitive, they can listen from God on our behalf, and God can use them to speak to us. Whether Pastor Kamlile was speaking from the Spirit or he was joking, the dream was born when he simply said, "Brother Derick, you should be next." He used Bishop Malenga to speak into my life and to let me know that I'll be going abroad, overseas. That was God using him. But along the way, there were so many opportunities for me to miss, so many instances where I could have missed this opportunity, because the devil was crafty. He knew the plan that God had for me, but he was also trying to entice me by trying to give me a job on the copper belt that would have let me miss that. At Central Statistics Office, I was being considered for this position, so I could have been given a position that could have blinded my eyes, not seeing what the opportunities out there. But God used that personal manager to frustrate me so much that I would have to quit, and then he provided this way out. From nowhere, there is 6.5 million. In fact, after we left, I got 6.5 million. Our group hired lawyers, Malenga. We hired them and we paid them. And they sued the government that we were underpaid. So they sued the government paid us more money. I think they paid 3 million. Then later on they sued for 1.5 million, and again they sued in 2015. They paid us, I got almost 10 million because there were two checks, one for 8.5 and another one for 1.5 million, which was like 10 million. And then last year, I think it was August, they paid the last some interest at 3,000. So at the end of the day, I ended up getting 20 million kwacha total, but I was just writing letters to my family to go and get the money, and then they would share it. I never got any of it. I would just write them, say, okay, please let my family collect the money. But at the end of the day, I ended up with at least 20 million kwacha from that job at Central City Office. I remember my boss only got 5 million. I got 4 times that. But one thing I wanted to say is that we are on the roller coaster. You know, the roller coaster is those things that the thrill rides where people go and then they would go fast, they would go up, descend down. And when you see people on the roller coaster, sometimes they are happy and then they are scared when it descends down, when it goes fast. One thing with those roller coasters is, one, people are firmly secured. No one falls off. 2, it knows where and when to stop, exactly where it started from. It may go up, go down. Some people throw up. Others will be yelling. Others will be smiling. Others will be scared. But it will go through down, up, round. Eventually it will come to a stop right where it started from. Life is like that. During this, from 1992 to the time I came to meet my wife, a lot of things happened. I told you about the jobs that I was doing as a field enumerator. I remember one time I was in the field on a bicycle, because we used bicycles. I was at this village, I finished registering them, and then I asked him, I could see, because it was like on a hill, I could see the other village, and I asked the person, I said, how do I get to that village? Because sometimes what we do is, when you're in this way, you ask what the next village is, then they'll direct you. They said, oh, to get that village, right now there's this path here, footpath, but it's overgrown with elephant grass. It won't be easy with a bicycle. So you go back to the main way and then come back. Now, that will take long. I was working on time. I needed to finish. So I decided to use the overgrown path on a bicycle. So I went. When I came out at the end, they were reaching this village, there were these big trees, almost like overgrown trees and undergrowth. It was almost like marshy. So I came out of those bushes and reached this hut, and I found this old lady, and I asked her, I said, Ma'am, where is Dad? Because you have to identify the head of the household. I said, Ma'am, where is the Dad? I mean, she was speaking in the vernacular, but I'm using English for it. She says, oh, mwana wanga, batate bako njoka inabaluma mwezi wa sila kumitengo kuja banamwalila, meaning he was bitten by a snake in those trees there. Last month he died. Those are the same trees where I just came from. I looked back there so scared, but I was like, wow. My point is, that's why I meant that life is like a roller coaster. There are so many things. Remember what I went through after watching that tape, and after Bishop Malenga prophesied over me. I had this supervisor trying to send me to the province. Sometimes I was given promotions. I was being considered for this promotion. So it's like up and down. There are other things that happened. But God knows that we are firmly secured. We will not be distracted. We will not be hindered, because His plan is firm and secure. Just like Hebrews 6:19 says that we have this hope as the anchor for the soul. It is firm and secure. When you are in Jesus, your soul is secure, firm and secure. And so when He says, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's why I say that you have to be in the mindset of God. When you're in the mindset of God, all these things. I told you about how these messages were coming, and then there were just these people that were coming that had information about how to go to the US. It was almost like school. We'd go to the British Council, read magazines about life in the US. And there was just information that was coming at the right time. God is faithful. So if you are a young child, a young person watching this tape, I want to encourage you that it's not over until God says it's over. I had given up because I had not gone to college when I finished school. I started working. I was seeing these friends that had gone to colleges. But it's not over until God says it's over. I hope you are encouraged by my testimony. I just wanted to give this testimony to somebody out there to encourage you to know that it's possible. With God, all things are possible. Right now, One of my passions is buying shoes, because I never had shoes in primary school, so I have this passion of buying shoes. I buy shoes like a woman, because I just want to appreciate the faithfulness of God. My name is Derick Chibilu, in Houston, Texas, and I pray that by listening to this testimony, you've been encouraged, you've been motivated, you've been inspired. If you've forgotten about your dream, that dream will be resurrected. May God bless you.